Excuse me. Right.
Thank you. Don't worry. Just how do I get it?
Page 24 of the agenda, councillors.
Sorry, 34?
24. Actually, it's 23, sorry. My glasses, please.
23, okay. Clean glasses, right. Well, welcome everyone, and 10 minutes. Now, the pretty straightforward process. You have 10 minutes to present. If you wish some questions to be had, I will tell you when you've had 8 minutes, and if you want to take some questions, that would be much appreciated. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and thanks, councillors, for the time to...
Bruno, could you just turn your microphone on, please?
Right. We're members of Pure Hawke's Bay, and we've come to you with a proposal to jointly study and assess the economic benefits to the regional economy from positioning the Bay as GM-free food producing region, and to explore the opportunities for capturing those economic benefits. We're not asking you to regulate, we're just asking for you to partner in a study into the benefits for the region. Pure Hawke's Bay represents a growing number of farmers, producers and exporters. We're passionate about the region, we're passionate about improving the returns for the region. We have a number of organic growers, but it's not an issue between organic and conventional. 90% of our supporters and exporters are actually conventional growers. So what we'd really like to do is to undertake a scoping study for the marketing and branding opportunities centred around the region's GM-free producer status. Scott.
Well, thank you. And we see the Regional Council as the EDA, and that's really where we're coming from. We've spoken with the council before and presented and asking for regulation, and we don't wish to talk about that today. We see what we want to do is add value to the status quo, and we believe the economic development arm of the Regional Council could pick this up and champion this cause as well too for the wider Hawke's Bay. Hawke's Bay is obviously a premium food producing region. We've got a lot of competition out there, and we'll talk about that later on with South Australia and other areas through Europe that are doing a similar thing. And we think we need to get some teeth into what we're doing and formalise it a bit more. The District Council has taken on the task of protecting the district's GM-free status in the local plan, and that's evolving as we speak, and it could take some time to sort out. The Napier City Council declared itself GM-free some years ago. We're not asking for Hawke's Bay Council to take a position on this, but we think we should have a look into it, and this study we're proposing would look at the economic advantages of it, and out of that we believe we'll see where we head to from there. So we've just got to capture greater value for our primary produce. It's not about products that come in that are imported through the Watties channel, the thousands of containers of imported product. We're talking about primary produce and fruit and wine, etc., grown and wider agri-business sector and exporters in Hawke's Bay.
And really across the Tasman, our Tasmanian neighbours have got the jump on us. They're on the boat already. Tasmania, for example, has declared itself a GM-free producing country or state since 2001. South Australia recently declared itself GM-free, and they see the opportunities, the marketing opportunities, and I think the South Australian handout is one well worth having a look at, because that's put out by the state government, and that's championing the cause of GM-free produce. We've got to be selling to the top end of the market, and honestly, GM is a pariah in the marketplace for a lot of those top end markets. We want as much return, as much value added to the products that we produce in Hawke's Bay, and that's what's happening overseas. They've seen the opportunities there. Bavaria, the third largest German state of 20 million people, recently declared themselves GM-free, and it's every week or month that goes by, another country throws up a wall against GM produce. So the scoping study, we'd like to have a partnership which looks at producing a report and looking into the benefits of this GM-free status for the bay. We're farmers and producers, and we really believe in employing experts where experts are required. And so we're asking the council to help out with this scoping study, and we're suggesting that $25,000 is a reasonable amount to get this study done. We're also looking to fund half of that ourselves, and we're looking to partnership this with council.
So just to wrap up, in the final part of our submission, we have that in detail there about the partnership and the study. But the key point we'd like you to take home is, regardless of who regulates the GMO-free position, whether it be central government at the moment or some local government acts as well, it's really about, it's important to know how we're best to leverage off our status quo at the moment. We've got a marketing advantage currently, and we'd just like to see if that's an economic advantage. We believe so, and that's why Pure Hawke's Bay is pushing for that. So we welcome any questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, questions? Councillor Bevan.
Yes, thanks for your submission. Just a quick question with regard to how you define GM-free. Would that prevent research entities from doing lab work, which might involve GE?
It's for field trials, and it's what is contained in the lab is in the lab, and what's contained in the Watties factories and their mixing of other product coming in imported ingredients, that's their business as well. So what we see we're at risk of is open field trials and the ability of our perception, because perception is reality when we're marketing Hawke's Bay produce. So it's a perception thing.
So it's biologically viable organisms out of the lab, really.
Questions? Councillor Scott.
Yes, do any of you market your products now GM-free?
Very, very much so, and there's actually, and maybe this will come out if we get to this case study side of it, Councillor Scott, because people are achieving GMO-free premiums at the moment over maize, etc., leaving New Zealand, leaving Hawke's Bay, versus other products around the world. The fastest growing food sector apparently at the moment in the US market is GMO-free. There's a lot of people turning away from it, the grain markets, etc. So many of us do that. We advertise it as GMO-free, etc. And we can do that because there is regulations in force in central government level. But what's happening now is we want to add value to that Hawke's Bay position on that.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
So you are able to quantify it. I mean, I understand that from Kim Thorpe's thoughts and my own thoughts here that it's just a way of adding value to our premium products. But your thoughts, Scott, that you can actually quantify that in value in terms of what you're getting right now?
Well, I think somebody like John Bostock can give some very clear examples of the value premiums to be had with GM-free produce. He sells into markets with a premium for GM-free maize, etc. But I mean, to really quantify those benefits, that's something an economic study would help to do. It's really it's a step beyond what we have been doing in the role to date, but there's various examples out there of premiums, and I think that's been acknowledged by South Australia and Tasmania in the stance they've taken.
If I could add to that, an example would be GE-free canola in Australia. For instance, South Australia has a 10% premium over other canola grown around Australia. There's quite a bit of GM canola there, and they can't get enough now GM-free canola. So there's an increase in demand in that area as well too.
Steve, did you have something?
Yeah, just in terms of how we understand the types of benefits that flow, premiums are obviously the sort of the holy grail, what you want to be achieving across the board. But in some cases, GM-free status, and particularly that is regulated, it's about avoiding harm. So it's about reducing the risk of contamination, which can be more difficult to put a dollar value to, although I know that economists will have a jolly good go. It's also about maintaining shelf space, and that's where we need to be very mindful of what is happening in other regions that are targeting premium value or high value markets like ourselves, Tasmania and South Australia being our closest neighbours. There we're competing for shelf space, and it may not be that we get a premium, but we actually stay in the game because we are able to provide that region-wide guarantee of aligning with consumer values.
Thank you. 30 seconds, I went like that, and I didn't got the two-minute word out. One more question from somewhere? Councillor Graham?
So just to clarify it, the study is $25,000. You're going to put up half yourself, and you're looking for the other half from us.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you. Very clear. Well, thank you very much, guys, for that. And
Thank you for the opportunity.
very timely. Just 5 seconds to spare. There you go.
We've done this before.
I know you have. I know you have, Bruno. Okay. Now you'll see here is a District Health Board.
Yeah, Nick.
Nick is here. Oh, good. Good morning. Kia ora. Have you ready? Yeah. It does say 15 minutes here, but don't panic, everyone. We slip in the odd 5 minutes to make sure we get through the day. So. Presentation.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair, councillors.
So 10 minutes, you know the drill.
I do.
A few questions at the end within the 10 minutes. I'll tell you when you're 2 minutes.
I'll try to do as little presentation and as much time as possible for questions.
Thank you.
So you've got our submission. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and I've reviewed the officer's comments. I think you've picked up a couple of the things, which is great. A couple of things I thought didn't get noticed, perhaps. The stock fencing issue, or the stock exclusion issue, I couldn't see any mention of that in the officer's report, but the main point from our point of view of that is obviously trying to keep stock excrement out of the rivers. It's good for public health. But obviously if you've got fencing going up at the same time as you're doing your riparian planting, that would help actually protect the riparian planting. So, one option might be just to do a bit less riparian planting and get the fences up at the same time. The clean heat one, really, it's about, I guess, trying to get the maximum health benefit about that. Obviously, there's a gain in terms of air quality gain, which is also a health benefit. But in terms of the warmth of the houses, we're anxious to try and see if we can really target those houses that are in greatest need. And I notice your officer has reported that we'll continue to work together to try and do that, but it would be good to see some specifics around that. On the air quality monitoring, I notice that PM2.5 is being considered, and I would really encourage that. It's a much better measure of health risk than PM10. We did mention that the fact that there is potential for outside of the urban airsheds to become to need to be monitored if we get widespread oil and gas exploration. There's certainly been problems noted in the US with ozone, etc., from oil and gas exploration, so we need to keep a watch on that. I think I'll leave it there and just take questions.
Thank you. You've opened up a few discussions there, I would suspect. Councillor Scott?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Jones. I'd just like to pick up on the clean air, and I'm aware of the debate around the 2.5 as against the 10 at the time the NES was proposed, and they decided to go with that as the regulatory method. Monitoring PM 2.5 would certainly give us a knowledge of what was there, but what would you expect to come of the information? Would you expect to see some sort of regulatory response to it, or is it just a information profiling, or what?
That's a good question. I suppose it would enable us to be able to estimate the health effects more precisely. I know that your own scientific staff are aware of the benefits of using 2.5. I mean, I appreciate the difficulty of not having a regulatory tool based on it, but I think sometimes it's good to have the knowledge, even if the regulatory response is not specifically based on that. It just gives us a better understanding of what the issues are.
You, Councillor Balfour.
Just staying with the clean air, is it your sense that an adequate amount of monitoring is going on? I mean, my understanding is we have very few fixed locations, and then we do some mobile monitoring as well.
Yeah.
Is that monitoring being done, in your judgment, in the right places, given your concern about where those programs would have the most benefit?
Well, one area that I think we probably do need to think about a little bit more is the dust issue, particularly around rural roads, rural Wairoa, for example. I know that we've got some issues with forestry and forestry trucks generating dust. So how we address that in terms of actually detecting the issue there and monitoring it, that is an issue that I think would be worth trying to resolve and put a bit more effort into. But in terms of whether or not use fixed or, I mean, there's always trade-offs in terms of costs, isn't there? So if you have the ability to move your monitors around, I guess you can get better bang for your buck. I'm not really an expert in that, though.
Thank you. Councillor D.
Morning, Dr. Jones. On the issue of PM10, have health authorities taken into account to any extent the contribution to PM10 of tyre dust? Tyres wear out, and I was just reading recently that apparently in urban areas the greatest contributor can be simply from the wearing down of vehicle tyres.
I don't know. I mean, I know that there have been studies looking at the various contributions of different, portions of that PM10. I mean, my understanding is that in Hawke's Bay the majority is deemed likely to be from fire, wood burners, etc. But I wouldn't exclude there being some tyre dust. I think there is other issues around tyres which we've expressed concerns on previously, particularly around the risk of used tyres being a great place to grow mosquitoes, and very hazardous in terms of fire. So we're encouraging councils to exclude used tyre depots from the urban areas. But in terms of the dust itself, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Councillor Scott.
Just want to pick up on your 10.3. The oil and gas mining may create health hazards, and monitoring is needed there. Would you see that as a consent condition if a resource consent was given for any?
I think there's two issues there. There's the local effects around one particular operation, and I think they would probably be dealt with under the consent. It's more the cumulative effects issue. So we're a long way from that at the moment. But this is where you've got very large developments in places like North Dakota, where they've got regional ozone effects. So it's just the accumulation of all that activity that is creating those air quality issues. And we're certainly nowhere near that at this stage, and maybe never will be in New Zealand. But I think it's something we should keep a watch on.
Would you not see that was the applicant's or the operator's responsibility as part of the consent conditions?
Well,
trying to take the monitoring?
I mean, it's like all of those cumulative effects issues in the Resource Management Act. They're difficult to deal with on a consent-by-consent basis because each consent only contributes a minute amount to the overall problem. So there does need to be some sort of other process for looking at those issues.
Thank you. Councillor Beale. 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, please excuse my ignorance. You've recommended that we look at fencing for stock exclusion in all places where there are riparian plantings. I'm interested to understand a bit more about the process from our perspective of doing that, which is a question for staff. Is it appropriate to talk about that now, or when we consider those likely since tomorrow.
More likely when we get to the
Very quickly,
consideration.
I can't imagine that we would be planting anywhere where they're without excluding stock from the planting area.
Okay.
That's encouraging.
That makes sense.
It wasn't mentioned in the plan, so yeah.
Well, we'll tease that out a bit when we get to that discussion. Are there any other questions? Do you have any final comments, Dr. Jones?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.